Hello there, welcome back to my channel. This week I thought I'd do something a little bit different and I wanted to take you all along for a week in my hobonichi. I thought it would be fun to record myself throughout the week as I go through my daily entries. When I have a pretty normal week, no crazy trips, no super overloaded work schedule, this is what my journal tends to look like. And I like to kind of match the spreads that are on opposite pages so they kind of look like they go together. I don't own any planner kits or sticker kits or anything that people tend to use when they want to create a spread that looks like it's themed or has a particular style. But I like to recreate that kind of idea with just the stationery and washi and stickers that I already have. So this was Monday. I've had these stickers that I'm using for a while. They were actually featured in my very first video, I believe, an AliExpress sticker haul, and I've been slowly making my way through them for the last 3 years, which is crazy how long I've had them. I feel like I've used the plant stickers, especially in a ton of journal spreads, but I never seem to run out of them. They're just made out of this, it almost feels like parchment paper is how I would describe the texture. I prefer it over the glossy or transparent stickers that make up a lot of the rest of my collection. So for this week, somehow I set up approximately 3 different doctor's appointments. So on Monday I went to my dermatologist, and on another day I had an eye doctor appointment. And because you do these visits annually or once every 6 months, I always tend to have 1 week out of the year that is just me going to the doctor several times, and it was this week that I chose for this spread. Other than that, it was a pretty typical work week for me. As the spring tends to go on and turn into summer, I feel like my schedule gets pretty packed, but at least as far as weekdays go, I keep things pretty light. I've also been trying to get a perfect month on my Apple Watch this month, taking a long walk on like my lunch hour and trying to get most of my work done in the morning when I can, because I tend to have a lot of things that come down the pipe at like 5 p.m. I was glad that I chose this week to film because there have been times in the past where I've had videos planned and the day just gets away from you and the lighting becomes so dark so fast, like in the winter, that there are just days where I would open up my camera to start filming and it was just the most depressing dim light that you'd ever seen. So it didn't always work out. For Tuesday, I was home alone in the apartment. My roommates go into the office at their work usually 3 to 4 times a week, and I'm fully remote. So there are just certain days of the week where I'm by myself, and I tend to get a lot of reading done. Reading, quote unquote, I listen to a lot of audiobooks on those days and just play them out loud. This week I was finishing up The Summer House by Carrie Beavis. It was the first book I'd ever listened to / read from that author, and I really enjoyed it. I say this in a later spread in this week, but I have read all of Ruth Ware's books, and obviously I enjoy it to a certain degree because I've listened to all of them, but she has a lot of tropes that are pretty repetitive, and so by the time you're reading her 3rd or 4th work, you kind of know what's going to happen, you know who the culprit is going to be. But there's just something calming about these British murder mysteries, especially like British audiobook narrators. Like I just feel like actually will only listen to audiobooks with a British, or I guess non-American narrator, just because it's almost like a form of ASMR. And I love reading, but you know, I work with a screen all day. and I tend to have a lot of books through Libby, which is a library app, which means I'm reading on my iPad, and it's not always the most desirable way to read when you've already been staring at a screen. So I always end up getting a headache as I'm reading at the end of the day. So I listen to a lot of audiobooks, and especially these British audiobooks, which is how I ended up with so much Ruth Ware, but there just comes a point where it's no longer surprising and you can guess every twist and turn that's going to happen. So I was really excited to find another author who really emulates that same style, but I wasn't able to, guess her twist. I didn't feel like I already knew the kind of character archetypes that I was going to encounter in the story. So I definitely recommend it if you are looking to do an audiobook. Although I will say that sometimes this is such a specific gripe. If you are listening to an audiobook that is narrated from multiple POVs, which a lot of these newer murder mysteries, specifically these UK authors, tend to do, I'm not sure why, probably Lucy Foley. I'm getting away from myself as I'm talking about this. This is a journaling video, but I just want to say that be really wary of listening to audiobooks with multiple POVs, because there either are going to be a cast of actors, each one inhabiting a different character, or the same narrator is going to do different voices and different accents for each of the characters. And there's going to be one chapter from the POV of the villain, right? And the narrator is going to have to choose an accent for that character, and it's going to be someone you've already encountered in the book. So usually, or sometimes, you can kind of tell who the villain is because they're doing the same accent. This happened to me recently in the book The Swell by Ali Reynolds. It was the second work I had read by this author. It had similar tropes to the first book I read by her, which is called Shiver. Both were very good reads. However, there is one character in The Swell who has a very specific accent that is even noted in the narrative, and that character also narrates chapters both in the book and also in flashbacks as the murderer, and you can hear who it is because it's the same accent. And it's immediately obvious from the second chapter when you meet this character. So just be aware. Just be aware of that if you're ever trying to get into the audiobook landscape, because I've been in it. And sometimes it's like, I don't know if the audio engineers or the record directors are just not thinking ahead as far as the mystery goes, but just something to think about. However, if you do want a really good audiobook recommendation, the Lucy Foley audiobooks are really great. They are narrated by a full cast for each character, almost, for each of the character POVs, and they do a really, really good job of not revealing the murderer before it is too early. I don't know if I can say, I don't know, I'm thinking about it. I might have to take out like some of the sounds in that word. Yeah, Lucy Foley, would heavily recommend all of her books. She has a new book coming out in June, The Midnight Feast, that I'm sure will be great. Everything else she's written is. I am buying both a physical signed copy and I am on the pre-order list for the Audible version because I had a free credit. So I will probably also be posting a reading vlog of that, hopefully. A reading journal vlog combo. So this July will actually be my 4th anniversary of using a hobonichi journal. My first ever hobonichi was the second half of an A6 avec that I bought from someone on Facebook Marketplace the summer of COVID, and I had been aware of the hobonichi style for a long time because I've been journaling for years. However, prior to 2020, the idea of the grid pages and the really thin Tomoe River paper and the quotes on the bottom that I couldn't read just didn't really appeal to me. I also was not convinced that I could journal every single day. I, like I said, have been journaling for a long time, but I could go like a month without saying anything, and then I would write 3 pages of all the drama that had happened in my life in the time I hadn't been journaling, and that was just kind of the only way that I knew how to do so. But I remember always wanting to be the kind of person who could journal every day. And that second half of 2020, having the hobonichi made me so successful at daily journaling that it was like it rewired my brain. I have recommended this journal to so many of my friends who have seen me journaling and have said they wanted to get into it or said they didn't think they could commit or blah, 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 whatever. And what I always say is that the A6 size is so helpful because you really can fill it up pretty quickly with adding like what I did, tape and stickers and what have you. And if you want to have a day where you have a lot to say, you still can really get a lot onto these pages, especially with the quotes at the bottom. I have covered them with paper before and just continued to write over it. I've even written the events of one day on a 2-day spread. I really cannot recommend the hobonichi enough. Even though there have been a lot of times in the past few years where I have completely fallen out of the habit, it's always less intimidating to come back to just because the pages are so small. I really feel like you can get a lot done with a little space. 2022 and 2023 for me were not perfect journaling wise. I do feel like I've been making a lot more progress this year so far. We'll see how that carries out until the end of the avec. This is the avec, so I'll be switching again in July. I don't know if it'll ever be as successful as it was during COVID because I didn't have anything else to do, obviously. But it has been really interesting to see my journaling kind of change over the last 4 years as I've been using the same book every year. I would love to one day really be able to use the cousin. I bought a cousin for 2022 and never journaled that whole year. It was a complete flop. It was embarrassing, actually. I don't even want to like go in and count how many days I wrote because I know it's such a small number, but I'm so jealous of people who are talented enough to keep up with a book of that size. So for Wednesday, I went with a little blue theme, as you can see. So I was looking for some stickers to match some of the colors I'd already chosen for the spread. These stickers are also from my old AliExpress haul, maybe the second one that I ever did. I really like the style of them. You can find all the links for these stickers in their respective videos, by the way. The links should still be active, as most of the stores that I ordered from are kind of AliExpress stationery staples, so everything should hopefully still be active. These are so cute. They're really nice quality, really vivid in person. I like them so much that I'm actually kind of stingy with using them because I always think that I'm gonna have like a cuter spread that I want to put them in, but I'm trying to be better about actually using things because otherwise I'll just keep buying stickers and never using anything and I'll stockpile them. So that's not what I want to do. I keep accidentally flipping to this prior page of stereophonic. I'm sorry about the curse words here. That was me adding in some quotes from the show. My roommate and I bought like $60 tickets to sit in one of the back seats and see this play last week, and it was so good. Kind of supposed to be a take on Fleetwood Mac, I believe. They're a 1970s rock band. A bunch of the band members are all in relationships. There's a lot of interpersonal drama on the stage. You get to hear some original songs. It's not technically a musical, it's technically a play with music. But it's a really great experience. They just released their cast album, so I was actually listening to it in the video I posted last week. You can see me listening to the album that had just dropped, I think, like the day before. So what I'm doing here at the top of the Wednesday page is something that I do on a lot of my different journal spreads. If I discover a song that day, or even if I just listen to it a lot that day or revisit it that day, I like to note it at the top of the page and draw like a little like wobbly Spotify icon. I think it's a fun way to kind of assign one of the senses to the page. In a perfect world, we would have like smart notebooks that could play music like this. I guess if you had like a digital journal, you could do something like this. The little icon and the name of the song actually reminds me a lot of leap pads, I think they were called. I might be totally wrong. I'm gonna look it up after this. I think they're called leap pads. They were books for kids in the mid 2000s, early 2000s when I was a kid. And it was a physical book with physical pages, and you had a magic pen. And the pen was mapped to the different areas of the page, and if you touched the pen tip to the page, it would play sound effects, or it would read the story out loud to you, or it would play music. So in my head, whenever I make one of these little Spotify icons, I imagine that it's like the Leap Pad, where if I could like touch it with a magic pen, it would play the song. It's just such a specific visual cue that I have from when I was a kid, and I feel like that is actually where I pulled the idea from subconsciously. So if you were to leaf through my journal, you would find a lot of these headers with a lot of different songs. It's just a fun way to add a little something to your pages, especially in that top area where you can't really do much else. I wonder how those Leap Pads actually worked. I think if I remember correctly, when you flipped to a new page, you had to say what page you were on. You had to hit a button somewhere to tell the mechanics of the book what page you were on, and then I guess the pen could tell where it was on the location of the page depending on the button you'd pressed. I actually have no idea. It was very, very advanced to me at 6, and I think it's still pretty impressive now. I wonder if those are still a thing, but I guess with the invention of iPads that kind of fell out of favor. But if I ever have kids, I'm definitely giving them a Leap Pad, because I just feel like having that physical thing in front of you is like way more effective for remembering things, which is probably why I still remember those little music icons to this day, and then somehow implemented them into my journal without even realizing what I was referencing. But that's just me. Just as a side note, because I went off on this tangent for so long, I did look into this. It was called the Leapfrog Quantum Pad. It was from 2003. How it would work is that there was an outside shell of the pad with an area to put in a cartridge, similar to a cartridge for a Game Boy or a DS. Then you would put the book inside of the shell, and once a cartridge was in, every time you flipped to a new page, you would hit a go icon in the top left-hand corner. Somehow, that communicated to the pad which page you were on, and it could play the right sound effects and cues. To be fair, I still don't really understand how this works, but that is the basics of the system, and I feel like it did a lot for my child brain to work with a kind of kid version of some of the tech that was available at the time. Among other storybooks, I also owned a history book for the LeapPad Quantum, and my most vivid memory is of the page of US presidents, including the current president, George W. Bush. That's how long these books were sitting in my subconscious before they started manifesting in my 2024 hobonichi. Okay, now back to the video. This little sheep on the Thursday page is the logo of a restaurant we went to that day, Pecora Bianca. It's an Italian chain kind of place here in New York. There are several different locations. I think it's kind of, I get the vibe that it's kind of touristy, or it's kind of cliche. I get the vibe that it's kind of a cliche for people to visit, but the food is really good. The ambiance is very cute. Any place that lets you just add burrata willy-nilly to your pasta dishes gets an A+ from me. So here on Friday, you might have noticed that I drew in these boxes and then just wrote the name of the movie underneath and didn't put anything here yet. If you've watched my shorts, you know that I tend to go back and print out all of the pictures I want to put in like a month, all at the same time to save paper, and also because my main method for printing out pictures and adding them to my hobonichi is that I actually have a 1:1 scale image of a hobonichi laid flat on my laptop that I can drag pictures onto and basically measure them against the size of the hobonichi page on my laptop, so that when I print them, I know exactly how big they're going to be. That's how I can get them to fit into these spots that I leave in my journal perfectly. It sounds kind of ridiculous as I'm saying it out loud, but if you're someone who doesn't have like a mini printer, or you just want to save paper, or my family has HP Instant Ink, so we all share the same subscription, and you get like 5 pages a month. It's a really good method to still have things to print out, but you don't have to have them on hand as soon as you do it. It's also helped me with journaling a lot more recently. In the past, I would tend to print things out, stick them in, and then write around them, and that would kind of make me procrastinate on writing, because I would say to myself, well, I have to wait until I print this picture out, so I can't do this day yet because I don't know how big the picture is going to be, so I might as well just wait. But that just leaves me to procrastinate, and I never actually end up journaling on those pages, or I'll just tape them in and never write around them because at that point it's been so long. So to get around that part of my brain, this is how I do it now, and it's been working really seamlessly, and it's also so satisfying to get to go back and add everything in all at once. I feel like I'm giving my journal a makeover whenever I do that. At the time of recording this, I have not printed the pictures out yet because I don't have enough spots, and I don't want to print them out just for this because then I'll use one of my 5 monthly pages. I might, but I might not do it, just to be honest. Okay, and that is that. That is my journal for this week. I really enjoyed this little exercise. I felt like it helped me kind of keep myself honest and journal every day, which is sometimes the push that I need. And I feel like it's a pretty good look at the way that my journaling style tends to manifest just in a normal day-to-day spread. I hope you've enjoyed. I hope you've enjoyed this different style of video. I know I usually don't tend to speak very much or at all, but I would like to have voiceover in some more of my videos. I feel like it could be fun, so I'm gonna try to keep up with that from time to time. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.